Good evening. I'm Charles Payne. President-elect Donald Trump holding an unprecedented post-election rally where he declared to Americans and the world that a new day is upon us.
You hear a lot of talk about how we're becoming a globalized world, but the relationships people value in this country are local. Family, city, state, country, they're local. We'll compete in the world. We want to compete in the world, but we're going to compete in the world where it's a two-way road, not a one-way road.
Donald Trump also made an appeal to the patriotism of all Americans in order to unite the country.
We have so many problems to fix in our country, but I know that if we set aside our differences, and we do have differences, we're a very divided nation, but we're not going to be divided for long. I've always brought people together. I know you find that hard to believe.
And just a short time ago, Team Trump announced the president-elect's next stop on his thank you tour. Trump will be going to North Carolina on Tuesday and Iowa next Thursday. It's all about the Rolling Rock Show. Joining me now to discuss, Kirsten Hagelin, Jessie Jane Duff, Amber Smith, and A.J. Delgado. A.J., you were one of the first ones to jump on that party train, the Trump train. What do you make of it? You like this move?
Oh, it's a great time for us, and I think it's great that Mr. Trump is doing what some are calling a victory tour. We're calling it a thank you tour because that's just who he is. He doesn't forget his supporters. But most of all, I'm seeing this as becoming a unity tour because I'm hearing of folks that maybe didn't even support Trump necessarily during the general election, but they like his cabinet picks or they like what he's done with Carrier, and they're coming out to hear our president because this is our president now, and they want to hear him directly. So it's become a unity tour more than anything.
You know, Amber, I think that's really true, particularly when it comes to the Republican Party. Think about the headlines 3, 4, maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago. What's going to happen when the Republican Party falls apart? What are the remains going to be? Will it be 2 new parties, 3 new parties? As it turns out, everyone's asking those questions to the Democrats now while the Trump train rumbles through the nation.
Yeah, what we saw last night was President-elect Trump rising above all of everything that you just mentioned. His speech, it was unifying, it was inspiring, and it was a call for all Americans to put their differences aside and come together so we can move forward as a whole, as a nation, to put America first, as Donald Trump always likes to say. And I think that it was great timing in terms of what he just did in terms of saving 1,000 jobs before he has even become the president.
Jessie Jane, also, it wasn't just about the jobs yesterday, right? The premature, let's call it a premature announcement, the new defense secretary. I know you were thrilled about that, of course, a fellow Marine. What do you make of it? Because I think that General Mattis is someone that almost everyone, particularly in the Republican Party, said this is the guy.
You know, General Mattis has made every Marine's heart stop and skip a beat. We are ecstatic over this. When I was on active duty, his reputation went from every command, from every base, and echoed through every hallway. He was so famous among us as one of the greatest leaders we have ever seen, since one of our greatest, Chesty Puller. So what I would have to say about General Mattis is that now ISIS is going to get nervous because that man does not pull any punches. He says what he means, and he means what he says. And I think Americans need that. We need a Defense Department that has a force that the rest of the world will have to reckon with when you take away the American rights and prosperity that we are so grateful to have every single day.
You know, also, Kirsten, Donald Trump worked a lot last night talking unity. Of course, there were the tweets earlier in the week with respect to burning the flag. And, you know, there's been the protest. And he's got a real serious, difficult road with respect to a lot on the left who just haven't accepted the fact that he was chosen. And I like the way he's gone about it, but it is going to be a difficult task, I think, bringing a lot of them over, particularly when the leadership seems to be tacking in the wrong direction.
Right, and of course Nancy Pelosi was confirmed again as House Minority Leader, and it just really shows that the Democrats are not moving forward in innovation within their party and recognizing they have to bring up new leadership. But you know what is interesting, though, to see people like Chuck Schumer and even some others within the Democratic Party realizing that they can maybe actually find common ground with Donald Trump and that they might work with him. Where you're really seeing the reticence and the pushback is from the people on the ground, right? From these protesters, from from people that continue to point to the popular victory of Hillary Clinton and bemoan the Electoral College. So that's why I think it's so good that Donald Trump is taking this thank you tour and taking his message to the people, because and really focusing on local. That was really such a great line, because, you know, people can rail all day against the system, but it's the people in their communities that they need to be kind to and work with first.
And of course, Ohio, probably the epicenter of a place in this country where the elites on both coasts have forgotten about. But on that note, AJ, okay, so you go to North Carolina, you go to Iowa. When does Donald Trump go to the states that he did not win? When does he say to these folks, hey, I'm going to share the same message with you?
That's a great question. That's something actually that we've discussed. We're looking into it because, as I said, it's not just a thank you tour. It's not just the many states, and I do say many, that he did win, but it's also about bringing people together. And he wants to remind America that, hey, even if you didn't vote for me, I'm your president and I'm going to fight for you as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some of the states, few states that he didn't win on that tour list.
Amber, I got a chance to ask Jessie Jane. I've got to, of course, ask you your opinion, of course, and General Mattis. And also, next week, Donald Trump's already hinted that we'll get almost all of the cabinet positions filled. That means maybe Secretary of State. I want your thoughts on that. Can we have a cabinet with 3 generals?
Yeah, absolutely. President Obama.
You would say all of them could be generals, right?
No, I mean, of course he can. These generals are great, experienced leaders. They have decades of experience behind them. And even if they go into a position that isn't directly related to the military, they have priceless experience with leading people, leading in massive organizations, and all of the leadership skills that come along with that. And so I think especially this General Mattis pick for Secretary of Defense, I could not be happier with that selection. He's an unapologetic warfighter. The troops love him. He's traveled across America to meet with the families of fallen soldiers of who he led in battle. And so he's the real deal, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him lead our military as the Secretary of Defense.
Unfortunately, some of his best quotes I can't say on the air, but he is he's a brilliant guy. We know he's a brilliant guy. He's got a great sense of humor, and he's someone that you would be honored to follow. Okay, so AJ, I agree. This was a thank you tour, but Jessie Jane, earlier in the day yesterday, that was a victory lap. And it was a well-deserved victory lap. Of course, the carrier jobs, more than half of those folks who were going to lose their jobs get to keep them. That, I think, is the central message, obviously, that everyone wants to hear when he continues this move.
Well, first of all, the one thing that he was emphasizing is that he wants to unite us. Because you know what the Democratic Party has done, and we still see it with the protests today, that they're dividing us. It's racism, it's homophobic, it's Islamophobic. And he's turning around and saying, no, you're Americans, red, white, and blue. I traveled across the country campaigning for his team, and we hit 9 cities in 5 days. And everywhere I went, I didn't see a divided country. I saw a united country behind Donald Trump, because the one thing we can all identify with is we are American. And a sidebar on General Mattis quotes, you probably can't use half of my quotes on the air either, Charles.
Great point, real quick,
Marines.
Kristen.
We're Marines.
You know what? At the end of the day, yes, people feel very divided, and they have some people in this country have very different opinions from Donald Trump, but he is going to do things, hopefully, for the economy, with the health care law, with a lot of things that will make real differences in people's lives, and it's the policy that's going to unite people at the end of the day more than anything else.
Even child care, which is something Republicans have never really looked into, is a promise that I think many Americans appreciate. Thank you all very much, and I salute those who served in the military.